Hello, class. All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to see how to test to see if some relationship is a function or is not a function. Um, so this is all based on this definition of what a function is. So our definition is a function is a relation of one set, the domain, to another set of numbers, the range. Remember we talked about those. This is our input values are our x values. The ranges are our y values or our output values. So the function is a relation between the domain to the range that assigns each input value to exactly one output value. So remember, it's the input value to exactly one output value. All right, so let's do some examples. First thing we want to look at are the relationships between a table or our input and our output of some relationship. So your question is going to say to determine if the following relation are functions or they're not functions. So this first one, what you want to look at is we're mainly going to look at our inputs. So remember our definition is that each input maps to exactly one output value. So each input value goes to exactly one output value. So the 1 goes to the -2, 2 goes to 1, 4 goes to 7, 7 goes to 16, 10 goes to 25. So if you notice, none of my input values are repeating, and that's pretty much what you have to look for. It's just if the input values are repeating. If they repeat and they go to two different numbers, then it is not a function. If your inputs don't repeat and they go to different y values, then, they can go to different y values. But if your x values don't repeat, then you're good and it is a function. So this one is, yes, this one is a function. So that one is a function because each input goes to exactly one output, and that's what you'd have to write if it asks why. A lot of these questions will ask why. So each input goes to exactly one output, and you will just restate the definition. Now for this one, as we notice, our input is 1, and we have another one, and they map to two different y values, as well as the 4 and the 4. So that's going to be a problem for us. So that one, what we would say is this one is no, it is not a function, and that's because we've got these two 4s go to two different y values. So each input value is not going to exactly 1, it's going to 2. In this case, then it's not a function. So my 1 and my 4 are going to two different output values, and that is a problem. But look at this relationship. I got -2 to 4, -1 to 1, 0 to 0, 1 to 1, 2 to 4. If you notice, my inputs did not repeat. But even if my outputs do, it's still a function. So all you're doing is looking at the x values, and if they repeat, then it is not a function. If they don't repeat, then it is a function. So that is yes. This one is a function because each input value maps to exactly one output value. All right, our last one here, we've got 2 goes to -4, 1 goes to -1, 0 to 0, 1 to 1, 2 to 4. So if you notice, my 2 and my 2 repeat. They go to two different y values. My 1 and my 1, those go to two different y values. So this one is no. This one is not a function because our input values of 2 and 1 map to two different y values or two different output values. And that is a problem, so that is not a function. All right, another way we can tell if something is a function, so this is all based on the definition that we had where we had exactly one input value to each output value. And this is called the vertical line test. So you can move a vertical line from left to right along a graph. So pretend that you have your pencil, you're going to map it vertically along a graph and just move it from left to right. And whenever that your pencil runs over, if the vertical line ever intersects the graph in more than one point, then the relation is not a function. So if it ever intersects more than once, whenever you're putting that vertical line on there, then it is not a function. So let's look at some examples of that. Okay, so this first one, I'm going to take my vertical line, I'm going to move it from left to right. So as you notice, this one is just touching once through the whole thing. So once you get to the end and you have only touched one point the entire time, then this one would be yes, it is a function. And whenever you're talking about graphs and you want to explain, it may say explain, then you would say yes because it passes the vertical line test. All right, number 2, we've got a circle. So if you look at our points here, if I draw some vertical line right here, let's just say I draw it right there, I hit there and I hit there, that's going to be a problem. That hits twice, so then we have a problem, and that one is no, it's not a function because that fails the vertical line test. So if it ever asks you to explain why this is not a function, you could just say that it fails the vertical line test, and that would be fine. Looking at this one, we've got our step function, and if you notice here, say I drew my vertical line right there, I hit here the whole time on all of those different points, so that's going to be a problem. So that one is no, that one is not a function, and you would say because it fails the vertical line test. And then as we move our vertical line here, it just hits once the entire time, moving throughout our whole graph, our whole relationship. So that one is yes because it passes the vertical line test. And that is how you can tell if something is a function or not a function.